All right, so continuing to build my character assets. Notice I haven't saved this as a different name, and that's dangerous. But I'm actually not planning on saving this at all. I'm planning on, since I've shrunk these and I've edited these, now I'm going to move all of these layers by selecting them all and then moving this file out. I'm going to move them all onto my assets file, which is right here. So I just drag and drop the layers into my assets file. Now, how do I organize them? Well, if I click on the little folder icon, which is next to the new layer icon, it will create a group folder. And I'm going to call that character. So it's good to label your groups as well as your layers. And these are my character assets. And I'll keep building them. So in that folder are all of these different traits: the head, the ruffles, the tail, the front leg, the torso. Notice that it's large resolution, larger than I need, but that's because in my animation I have a zoom where I zoom in on my creature a little bit more. And I might want his head to be this big as he starts to sink into the water. So I'm going to leave my character assets quite large. All right. Let me mark that red. Okay, now this guy, I don't need him anymore. My background character that was already in my landscape. So let's edit him out. So I'm building assets within my asset file. And my asset file just kind of became my setting asset file, but I could have moved all those layers over into the one I had set up. So this will be the one I use. So now I have setting assets and character assets. I might as well put my character assets, actually, no, they're in the right place. So I have them set behind the foreground, in the middle ground, and in front of the background. That makes sense. Now I can start to set up my next keyframe, which is introducing my character. So what do? I can take my character assets and I can duplicate it. This is why we're working in low resolution. So what did I just do? I took a whole folder of different layers, like 5 different layers, and I did Command J and got a perfect copy of it. Now why did I do that? Because having layers grouped together allows you to transform them together. So I can shrink the character as I introduce him. So I have the asset of him getting introduced. How do I want him to look? So let's see, I think I want him to probably be in the distance back here. Pretty darn small. And kind of swimming this way. Now, how do I want his head positioned? So I get to now move my puppet. So I'm going to angle his head up a little bit because he's going to be kind of in the water. I'm going to use my arrow keys. Notice I'm not zooming in. I'm not going to worry about being too precise. And then his ruffles, I'm going to warp them back a little bit. Okay, then his tail, I'm not going to see, so it doesn't matter. His front leg, I'm not going to see, so it doesn't matter. His torso, I can angle down a little bit. And it looks like I have to erase a little part from the torso. And because this is a copy now, you see the low resolution? I can erase from it so that it kind of looks like he's underwater. Low resolution here is kind of a safety net. And now I have to make him integrate with the setting. So honestly, the easiest way would be to just copy this setting part in the foreground that's getting in my way. So I can turn auto select on. That doesn't work because of all the texture fills, so turn that off. I'm just going to find that glacier that's in the foreground. Okay, there it is. Okay, so what I'm going to do is make a copy of it, because I never want to damage my assets, because that's going to come around later. And I might delete from it, right? Because that's more in the background. So I have to get kind of to the water line here. Every environment has its own challenges. So that's one way I can introduce my character, right? Now let me pose him now, because that's maybe this keyframe, right? But this is the beauty of it. So if this is the keyframe, let me see, I think I can improve it a little bit. Let me work with my foreground. Let me do a little bit of clone stamping, doing only the current layer, the soft brush. I'm on my foreground layer here. I'm just going to extend some of this water texture at a low opacity into my setting element, just like that. Okay, so I just built that in. That's going to be helpful. Okay, so if this is my next keyframe, I want to get from here to here with more than just a big jump. I don't want the character to all of a sudden appear. So this is what I can do. How do I make this a keyframe? I hold down Option, I go to Layer, Merge Visible. It's on top of everything. I hit Command A, I hit Command C, I go to my stage, I hit Command V. Right? That's not a great introduction, where he just appears out of nowhere. So I need to work on in-betweens now. And it's easier to work backwards in animation very often than forwards. Right? So to get the in-betweens between these two, I'm now going to deselect, erase that, flatten layer, go back to my character, step him back a little bit, and maybe animate his head down. So what does his head look like underwater? Yeah. Okay, and then this will be the next frame. Hold down Option, Layer, Merge Visible, select all, copy, take the picture, move to stage. But it goes there. So now I have from this to this to this. Do I need more? Maybe one more to show it kind of breaking the water. So I go back to here, I take my deselect, delete that merge layer, go back to my character asset copy, move him down, move the head, and now maybe I want to add a new asset. Let's show some bubbles, because his mustache is now underwater. So what can I do? Well, I can do a Google search. This won't be the last time I do this. And I'm just going to look for sea foam or sea bubbles. And I don't need to worry about high resolution because this is a GIF animation. These are all too extreme. So I just want to look for surface bubbles. Stock footage. Yeah, I could use those. Or I could think like a storyteller and just use what I have. But this is pretty good. Now this is kind of cool. If you have your Photoshop file open, you don't need to save it to the desktop. You can just drag and drop from the image preview into your Photoshop file. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a bunch of this, basically a texture fill, duplicate it, delete what's underneath. This is in my character assets copy. This is a little spontaneous use. Whoops, wrong thing. I'm going to soften its edges a lot. Use these as kind of surface bubbles. It's a soft eraser. Transform it. Put it here. Stretch it out. Kind of have it sit where I need it to sit. In the water. Play with its levels. Brighten it up a little bit. Give it some more contrast. All right, take away its color. On and on. All of these tools we've been using, lighten it up. And I can have some fun with softening it. But basically I can use the dodge tool to brighten it at the tip. I want to have some fun here, storytelling, a little special effects of the water breaking. You know, as his mouth especially breaks the water. So that might be there. Now I can play with its opacity. It's going to be subtle, but it does a nice job kind of hiding that tusk. And this will be the first time I see my character. So I might take that whole layer and then say image. Let's see. I might want to darken it. So I can double click and do a layer style just to this one where I do a color overlay at a really low opacity just to darken the character a little bit. So that they go into from like kind of low light into full light. There's so many things you can do. All right, so this will be the first time we see my character. So what do? I now, what am I thinking? Hold down Option and say Layer Merge Visible. Select all, copy, move it to the stage. And now I have this sequence. This, 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 this. And all that does is get me between, I think I want to change my first one. It gets me between these two panels, right? These two keyframes. And it's going to set up what things I need to change. So, already I've seen, and that's why we animate in this kind of very deliberate way. All of that works. I'm going to deselect. I'm going to turn off that character copy. And I'm going to work a little bit more on my setting so that this is my establishing shot, not this, because that thing gets in the way.